Hello, fellow YouTubers. This is Sherlock here. How you guys all doing? So, I've been wanting to make a video for a long time. I've seen all kinds of stuff on YouTube, but just never had the time, and not that I have much time now anyway. But this video may go viral because this is going to touch a lot of topics where it's been in discussion through YouTube and other media outlets. But some of the stuff I wanted to talk about. So one of the things was when I was a kid growing up. I'm actually 39 right now, but when I was a kid growing up in science course and whatnot, and in classes, we had this ball Earth presented to us and how everything worked and the sun. And in fact, I did quite a few projects on it myself in grade school and high school and college and whatnot. But then of recent, with the internet and YouTube and some other people were starting to think the same way as I did, and it's kind of interesting how it's coming back in the in YouTube, and obviously not in mainstream media or your science course. But some of the stuff that I want to talk about was the fact that when I was growing up, I was always wondering that you know if we have an open system, which means that in the sky you can exit and be in outer space, quote unquote, or you can have meteorites falling in. So that means we have an open system. So if it's an open system all around, then how can we be on a ball in a sense? How do we have water that's curved? That's one of the things that I didn't understand. So I'm not saying I'm a flat earther or a round earther or whatever. It's just I've never understood how quite that works. And then I get the gravity thing thrown at me, but even with that, it doesn't really make any sense. Where we can have an open system, yet have a curved shape like a ball shape, and have water that's curved. So that's one of the things that I didn't quite understand, and still a bit complicated. And another thing I noticed was I was a little doubtful about the moon missions as well. And one of the things that I never got an answer for, and I've asked everybody, and they just said, "Oh, there was no need to." I mean, as simple as that, just to dodge the question. But one of the things that I noticed, which maybe a lot of people will notice too, is that out of all the missions that we've had to the moon, so quote unquote, I say to the moon, not one time, if you guys notice, that do they actually show a video of the Earth from the moon. They never show it. They never pan it one time to say, "Oh, hey, look, this is what our Mother Earth looks like from here." And it would be a pretty amazing scene considering it's 4x the size of the moon. So that's another thing that I've never got an answer for, is that why is there no video shot of the Earth from the moon? Now I've seen other people post that one picture where they have the astronaut and then they have the moon in the background, and now we find out that it's just photoshopped in. So that's definitely no there. And then the other thing with that whole Bart Sibrel thing with how they were tricking the cameras with making it look like they're away from the moon when they're in fact in low orbit. So stuff like that makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit on what's really going on. But what I wanted to touch on was the flat Earth part, in a sense where I think I may have the answer for everybody on what we really live on. So this is my take on it, and it may sound a little wacky, but this is how it has to be. There's no other way it has to be. The way I think it is that there's a lot more land that the government and other entities that are in power do not want the people to find out about. Now you're going to say, well, why is that? Well, because it all has to go with the whole fraud of our entire life. And I'm actually going to title this channel as Truth Hurts. What I mean by that is that everybody knows that we're born into a system that we're enslaved by, which means, for example, the dollar, for example, that's the world reserve currency, which is flawed in itself, but it bullies the whole world around into accepting that, and it mainly favors I don't want to sound racist here, but it mainly favors the white and the Anglo-Saxons, in a sense where you got the countries that are run by the white people. In other words, they have the highest valuation, and all the other minorities, they have the lowest valuation. And in return, the minorities and the people that don't have the big bombs and missiles, they have to give up their natural goods and resources and labor in exchange for the dollar, which is the reserve currency. Whether it's the British pound or the euro or whatnot, it seems like that it favors the white nations that are in control of the planet, and everybody else has to be stuck with the lower denominated currency. So that's one side of it, where the flat earth part, in a sense, where there may be other lands that people can flee to, but if we're all taught that this is all there is, then that option doesn't come into play. Now, it might be a very long, long way to find this other spots, and it may be very cold and dark. And I always thought that maybe the stars that we see at night are those distant lands that have those stars. It sounds really crazy and all, but how do you really know that those stars are gazillion light years away? I mean, they're just telling you that. I mean, you can see it with your eyes, right? I mean, it's like, and then they tell you, well, the whatever light you're seeing is from billions of years ago or whatnot. But what if that this plane that we're on, you know, it's infinite, or it could be so huge that it's uncomprehendable for us. And the further you go, maybe there are other distant stars or closer stars. They're saying they're distant, but they're closer, and there may be more land. You know, how do we really know that there isn't? Because one thing that I logically can't understand is this: that if I get up and walk in one direction without making no turns, I don't see myself coming back to the same spot. That doesn't make any sense at all. So now you're going to say, well, if you're on a ball and it's spinning, then yeah, you will come back to the same spot. But, you know, with all the research I've done and all the tests that other people have conducted, I'm not talking about the just the amateur people that are on YouTube. I'm talking about people that are into science, even in the past. And they've all concluded that we're on a stationary plane. So I really think that all those other stars and other stuff we see, they might be really far out from us or really far away, but they could be over other lands that are here, but we're not told about. So we can be stuck in this enslavement here, and with this, and we can't really go and explore. So a lot of people probably know about this. This can turn into a really long video, so I just wanted to make my first video. This is not edited. There's no cuts. You could tell the way it's done that it's just me talking random stuff about the way some of the opinions. And you know, all has to play in with the fraud. Like I said, as soon as you're born into it, we're taught this bullshit religious stuff, you know, about how to live, how to behave, blah blah blah. And then when you tap out, you know, you'll be judged and all that. I mean, it's all just a bunch of bullshit. All the religions are bullshit. It's just a way to control people, and there's no evidence that backs any of the fairy tales that we're told. But it is a good way to control people, and that's what I realized at the age of 13. I'm 39, so I've been like this, believing all, not believing what I'm told through textbooks and whatnot. But it's definitely interesting on that idea that I had that, you know, there's got to be much more land. And the reason why we're taught we're on a ball is so we don't explore. And I've seen some clips where they actually show, oh, you're too late for exploring. When their little kid goes up to the teacher that I want to be an explorer. And then the teacher goes, oh, well, it's too late, Johnny, or whatever his name was. That, oh, everything's been discovered already. And I think that it's not true. I think there's a lot more land, but we just don't have the technology to get to it. Or there is technology, but the common people don't have. And one of the top topics is Antarctica, where we're not allowed to go. So first of all, you get the weather that's against your favor because it's too cold, and then the whole, you know, traveling part of how would you do it. So if that is true, that if you can get past that, and if you keep going, there may be more land. And I think this is what this is how they came up with this whole Balkan concept. And I mean, like I said, I'm just an opinion. It's just random thinking, crazy idea it might even sound. And I was also gonna say was, shoot, skip my mind. Maybe it'll come back. But yeah, I was gonna say was, you know, well, we got the religions that are in play to keep us in control. Then you got the currencies of the world to keep people in line. and the people with the biggest guns and the biggest bombs, they kind of run the show. And even though I'm a U.S. citizen, and there's a lot of positives here, but there's some things that I don't like. And I think what would really fix the world, to be honest, and you guys can vote me as a leader, would be to have a one world currency. Now, I'm going to say this, and then people, oh, you're Antichrist, and all this other bullshit's going to start. But if you logically think about it, if you did have one currency, you wouldn't have all the problems of the world we have now, because then products and goods and services, it doesn't matter where, who does what, where, when, because it's all valued at the same price. So the manufacturing doesn't have to be overseas. It could be done right here local in USA. But in order for this to happen, the rich boys, the top 1%, less than 0.5%, they wouldn't want it, because they can't control the show. They can't control the world, because they want to be the richest and they want to stay the rich. And with this scenario, they wouldn't be that way. So just think about it for a second. For example, I'm from India. I came here in '84, but I came as a kid, so I don't know any better. But my parents came, they were older and whatnot, and wanted to have a better future for themselves as well as us. They unfortunately didn't have one because they couldn't speak English, and ended up with just random factory jobs, whatnot. But they were hoping we would do something, and we did. So, but it's the valuation that's the thing. Like right now, the ratio is 1 to 60 in my currency, 1 to 60 in my country of India, where I was from. And that's where the problem arises, that you can get things done a lot cheaper elsewhere, and then bring it back and sell it for more. And this is the business model that a lot of businessmen have taken. But in return, it's wiping out the middle class, because then you're going to be extremely rich or you're going to be poor. There's going to be no middle ground, because it doesn't work. It only works to a certain point, then it doesn't work. And we're seeing the effects of that not working now, as in there's really no jobs here. The middle class jobs, in a sense, you get your typical $10, $11 an hour job deals, but anything that pays well is, it's only in certain fields. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with currency valuation. So if that got fixed, the world would be fixed. And we need to get rid of all these religions. They seem to be causing all the problems of the world. And now you're all going to say, oh, no, it's not the religions, there's this and that. But just think about it. If everybody accepted the fact that there's no fairy tales, and those are man-made books that are written fairy tales, we wouldn't have all these beheadings and killings and all the, the crusades or whatnot, of whatever religion they may be. So that's my take on that. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was the whole 9/11 stuff. That's another thing that doesn't make any sense. And for all the people that took logic and math and whatnot, if you have one false statement in a true statement, it becomes a false. So by that World Trade 7 falling, that false right there, and some of that perfectly nice circle missile hole in Pentagon, those two things are definitely on the false side. So it throws the whole thing off, that there's some foul play at hand. And that's just another way to get the local Americans to donate their kids to go kill themselves through this bullshit war over resources. And that's pretty much what it's about. Resources and occupying more land for Israel. That's the bottom line with that, in a nutshell. That's what's going on that topic. But I made this channel. I'm open to comments, whatever positive, negative may be. You may call me crazy or whatnot. I'm okay with that too. But it's just, like I said, I'm not picking any particular side. It's just a discussion per se on, what is really real. What is real. And, some of the stuff doesn't make sense. Especially, like I said, if you have a container, let's say you have a container, and let's just call it a ball container. If it's filled up all the way, you can have curved water because it's in a solid container. When you have an open system like what we have on this planet, where things can exit upwards in any direction upwards, whether you're in South Hemisphere or North or whatever part of the world, then it's not a closed system. I don't understand how water could get curved. Someone has to explain that to me. If you throw gravity at me, still a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense with that either. And what is gravity? What is actually gravity? You're going to say it's the pull. Or some other people explain, well, when you go to the amusement park, when you're spinning around in that machine and you get stuck to the wall, that's a force that's, Well, but then again, that entity, if that is considered a form of gravity, the spin and the pull, it's still happening in a solid container, right? The spinning is happening in a machine which is solid, and then you're sticking to the wall. But on our planet here, you can exit. Doesn't matter where you live. Even if it's ball shape, well, then you'd be exiting upside down. I guess there's no upside down or right side up in space, but either way you look at it, if it's a closed system, I don't understand how the water curves. So that is really interesting. I need someone to explain that to me where, they could show me some type of proof or whatnot. Oh, this is what I was going to talk about earlier, but I'd skip my mind. One thing that does get me is like, okay, a lot of the people are saying the space station is like fake and this and that. Fine, maybe it is so. But what I want to know, how did they do that part where when they squirt the water out, you can actually see it floating. You can see things floating, water, whether it's an apple, orange, or whatever they're doing with liquids. You can see that happening. Now, is that CGI'd or is that for real? So that definitely is interesting. And oh, somebody's calling my phone. We'll continue this later. Well, actually, no, I don't have to answer it. Um, so put your comments in. Let's open up some stuff. And I have some really terrific ideas on leadership and, for the planet in general, for everybody to come ahead. And one of the main things would be this is to have the one currency, because that will definitely fix a lot of problems we have on the jobs for people and the quality and the better life for everyone on the planet. You know, it's it's all rigged up. Everything's false. Like we're born into this whole false thing for the religions, the money system, the bankers, the whole concept of interest, the whole science part. Before get off this video, another thing I want to understand is how we can barely transmit stuff here. And they're talking about this, sending out these places. Of course, the Mars thing is another fake bullshit story. That's another video. But when they send out these satellites and whatnot, and they're getting all these CGI images back, and then they tell us what's on it. I mean, how are they able to check what's on it? What is actually doing the test? I mean, they're looking through a telescope and telling you Europa has water and has methane, or some other planet might have diamonds or gold or whatever the hell, the oil or whatever the resources. I mean, how are they just coming up with random shit like that, without any proof? So when I started questioning my teacher in astronomy course, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll get to that later," but then later never comes. By the way, I got an A in the class for whatever, but a lot of interesting topics out there, and this is my first video, and I'd be interested to see what kind of feedback I get, and I really think that there's a lot more land that could be discovered if we all just somehow came to it, or got to it, and had the technology for it. Take care.